Hello Summoners, and welcome back to another ProGuides upcoming changes video. My name is Dan, and today I'm going to be going over all the upcoming changes that are planned for patch 9.20. Everything that I mention here can be found on the PBE right now or on the Riot dev boards. But please do keep in mind that nothing is in stone and changes can be made before 9.20 hits the live servers. We'll make sure to keep you guys updated with our patch rundown very soon, so click that sub if you want to see that. Also, there are a few notable changes which will target some of your favorite champions, like Garen, Rengar, Pantheon, Shaco, and many others, so stay tuned for that. Also guys, today's question of the day is, which champion you think needs a nerf or a buff within the coming week? I strongly think that Echo is quite overtuned right now and needs a bit of nerfs, but let us know your answers in the comments down below. Before we get started, I want you to click the link down below and check out our website ProGuides.com. ProGuides is the best proven way to improve at League of Legends, and we post guide videos like this one every single day. We've been doing a lot more advanced content recently, and I'm sure you won't regret signing up. Also, guys, we have an effective coaching feature, which lets you play and get coached by a pro. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this because your friends will be absolutely stunned at how much better you've become at League of Legends in such a short time. Alright, with all that being said, let's jump right into the video. First things first, we have 3 new skins that are hitting the Rift next patch. The first one is a brand new Ashe skin called High Noon Ashe. Next up, we have a badass High Noon Darius skin, and we finish off the High Noon trio with Hecarim. These 3 skins look so cool, and I can't wait to buy that Ashe skin when it hits the live servers. I've been having a lot of fun with her in my ranked recently, and she feels so much better with the buffs from last patch. Here is a quick sneak peek on every single champion that will be buffed, nerfed, or reworked. Pause the video now to take a closer look at them. Reworks: Viktor, Ivern, Garen, Shaco. Buffs: Locket of the Iron Solari, Rengar, Lissandra, Varus. Nerfs: Kiana, Pantheon, Blitzcrank. Now, let's start with the reworks. Garen. The much-anticipated Garen rework is finally confirmed to hit the live servers in patch 9.20. He's receiving some drastic changes to his kit, but the balanced team are looking to keep his playstyle relatively the same for the coming patch. First things first, his base HP has been increased from 616 to 620. Next up, his HP per level has been changed from 85 to 84, which is honestly a pretty negligible change. And lastly, for his base stats, his attack speed per level has been increased from 2.9% to 3%. Overall, these are very minor stat changes, which are aimed at rounding up his numbers to a more manageable amount. Now, let's move on to his passive. Garen's passive, Perseverance, will no longer double its HP regen when he's below 25 or 50% HP. In addition to this, the cooldown of Perseverance has been changed from 9 to 4 seconds to 7 seconds at all ranks. Also, the balance team have made it so that his passive no longer breaks the HP regen at all, and the heal amount has been shifted from 2 to 8% to 1.6 to 10.8%. Next up, Garen's W, Courage, will have its resistance stacks lowered from 0.33 to 0.25. On top of that, the maximum amount of stacks you can have has been lowered from 50 to 30, and the minion kills to max stacks has been increased from 150 to 160. Courage will also now grant Garen a shield which blocks 10% of his maximum HP, and he also gains 60% tenacity during the shield duration. Next up, his E, Judgment, will have its ticks changed from 5+1 per 3 levels to 7+1 per 17% attack speed. Next up, the base damage has been changed from 9 to 33 to 8 to 24, and the AD ratio has been increased from 0.28 to 0.40 to 0.32 to 0.40. Judgment will now also need 6 hits instead of 4 hits to gain the armor shred bonus, and this ability will no longer do 33% bonus damage if you only hit one enemy. In addition to that, Judgment will now deal 25% of his bonus damage to the nearest enemy, and also refunds its remaining cooldown if it is cancelled early. And finally, we have changes to his ultimate, Demacian Justice. To start things off, the Villainy passive has been removed completely, and this ability has been changed from magic damage to true damage on every target. Also, the damage on Demacian Justice has been buffed from 20 to 30% to 25 to 35%. Overall, these Garen changes are looking great for him, and I'm sure he'll be a very powerful pick in the meta next patch. Considering that he's already within the A tier for the top lane, he might even make that push to S tier with these changes. Also, one thing to note is that Garen will no longer take keystones like Fleet or Grasp, but can now take Conqueror because of his new E-tick mechanic. I'm super excited about these changes, and I hope Riot doesn't make any drastic nerfs to him before he hits the live server. Next up, we have the Ivern rework. So Ivern's been in a tough spot recently and pretty much sees zero play all across the board. For patch 9.20, the balanced team is looking to rework his playstyle and have turned him into a ranged champion instead of a melee one. This means that all of his auto attacks have been changed from 125 range to 475 range, and his W will no longer increase his AA range like it did previously. This is a pretty minor rework which will lower his skill cap significantly but will make him stronger overall. Alright, now we have the Shaco rework. The goal of this rework is split the playstyles of both AP and AD Shaco and put him in a position where he can be balanced separately. To start things off, Shaco's base AD has been lowered from 66 to 63, and the AD per level has been changed from 3.5 to 3. Next up, his passive Backstab will now deal an additional 10 to 25 damage with his auto attacks, his Deceive passive will now crit for 130% damage, and his 2-Shiv Poison passive will now deal an additional 15 to 50 damage. Next up, his Q, Deceive, will have its stealth duration increased from 1.5 to 4.5 seconds to 2.5 to 3.5 seconds. The cooldown on Deceive has been lowered from 16 to 14 seconds to 12 to 10 seconds, and the CD reduction bonus has been removed completely. In addition to this, the damage on this ability has been buffed by a decent amount and can also crit. However, as compensation, the scaling on Deceive has been nerfed by 15%, and the AP ratio has been removed. On to his W. Jack in the Box will have its fear duration nerfed from 3 seconds to 2 seconds and will now fire at all nearby targets instead of just one. On top of that, the missiles will do bonus damage to single targets, and the AoE damage will do 15 to 35 with 0.1% scaling. Next up, his E, 2-Shiv Poison, will have its damage changed from physical to magic, and it'll now do more base damage with a little bit less AP scaling. 2-Shiv Poison will also have its execute bonus damage changed from 0 to 50% based on missing health to 50% flash to all targets who are below 30% HP. Lastly, his ultimate, Hallucinate, will now trigger his boxes immediately, and the damage has been lowered by quite a bit to compensate. On top of that, the boxes will also do AoE damage, and the fear duration has been changed from 0.75 to 1.25 seconds to 1 second flat. Altogether, these Shaco changes are a good step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see how well he does in the next patch. I do believe that Shaco will be a really strong pick because of these buffs, and we'll start to see him being played more often. And lastly, for the reworks, we have Viktor. Viktor's been struggling in the meta quite a lot recently, and he's in line for some buffs in patch 9.20. Firstly, his Q, Siphon Power, will have its shield scaling buffed from 8% max mana with 15% AP scaling to 30 to 115 based on level with 15% AP scaling. Next up, his W, Gravity Field, will have its slow change from 28 to 44% to 30 to 45%. And the augmented Gravity Field no longer has a vacuum effect, but will apply a 20% slow for 1 second on every single one of his abilities. This is literally a built-in Rylai's into all of his damage spells, which is a huge buff. Lastly, his ultimate, Chaos Storm, will have its tick cadence lowered from 2 seconds to 1 second, and the number of ticks has been doubled. In addition to that, the damage per tick has been lowered by a large amount, and the augmented movement speed has been buffed by 5%. Finally, the Storm max speed has been increased by 25 to help apply more ticks. Overall, I love what they did with Viktor, and I know for sure that he will be a lot stronger next patch. However, one huge problem that Viktor faces right now is his Hex Core upgrade being way too expensive. The meta is too fast for a champion like Viktor, who requires multiple items to become relevant, so we'll see if he can make a comeback next patch. Alright, let's move on to the balance changes. Locket of the Iron Solari. First up for the balance changes, we have buffs coming to Locket of the Iron Solari. In the recent meta, Locket has been completely outshined by its counterpart called Zeke's Convergence. However, due to the Locket shield strength being so low, a lot of support players have been ignoring this item completely and have found no use for it in their full builds. For patch 9.20, the balance team are looking to bring this item back to its former glory and are buffing the shield strength from 30 plus 15 per level to 120 plus 10 per level. This is a huge buff for Locket, and we'll definitely see more players build this in the coming weeks. Since there is so much burst damage in the game right now with Kiana, Pantheon, Kled, and Evelynn, I'm sure the Locket buffs will come in handy. Blitzcrank. Next up, we have nerfs coming to Blitzcrank. If you weren't aware already, Blitzcrank received a buff on his Q recently, which increased the range of it from 1050 to 1150. This was a massive buff, which skyrocketed his win rate straight into the S+ tier in our support tier list. It appears that the balance team have realized that they done messed up and are nerfing him for patch 9.20. His base armor will be lowered from 44 to 40, and his armor per level has been changed from 4 to 3.5. This is a strange nerf because last patch they increased the hook range change, but are nerfing his armor as compensation. A little bit of a weird change if you ask me. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Up next, for the balance changes, we have Rengar. Rengar is a really powerful champion right now who does not need any buffs, but the balance have stated that they want to increase his performance in low elo while keeping it the same in higher ones. For patch 9.20, Rengar will have his W, Battle Roar's damage healing increased from monsters from 50% to 100%. This means that jungle Rengar will become a lot easier to play, and he'll be a lot stronger between Iron to Gold. However, a rioter has mentioned that these buffs could be cancelled and implemented into the game at a later time. Lissandra is confirmed to receive a buff in patch 9.20, which is aimed at increasing her performance all across the board. Her base armor has been increased by 2, her passive AP ratio has been increased by 20%, and lastly, her WAP ratio has been increased by 20% as well. If these changes go through, then you should expect Lissandra to see a lot more play within the meta because she'll do way more damage than before. An extra 20% damage increase on her passive and W is insane and might just bring her back into the meta. Varus hasn't been doing too well in the meta recently and is looking to receive some love next patch. His base AD has been increased by 2 and his mana regen has been increased from 7.34 to 8. This is a very minor buff, but we've seen the effectiveness of 2 AD increases on AD carries such as Caitlyn and Jhin, so we'll have to wait and see if this makes Varus a good pick again. Next up, Qiyana has been an extremely powerful pick in the meta recently, and the balance team are looking to nerf her damage in patch 9.20. Her Q will have its base damage reduced from 80 to 160 to 60 to 160. This means that she'll do a lot less damage during the early stages of the game, but will be unaffected during the mid to late game. Overall, these nerfs won't impact her too much since she really starts to shine during the mid game, where these nerfs will have zero impact. Lastly, for the upcoming changes, we have Pantheon. Much like Qiyana, Pantheon's been a tad too strong recently and is being nerfed next patch. His Q will have its damage nerfed from 75 to 235 to 75 to 215. This is a decent nerf, but it won't push Pantheon out of his S+ tier status. His early game is extremely oppressive and can easily gain leads due to his high base damage and burst. Alright, that's it for our upcoming changes video for patch 9.20. Let us know which change you're most excited about in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed watching this video, then please hit that like and sub button. Also, make sure to check out ProGuides.com if you want to see huge improvements to your rank right now. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Good luck in your next few games, and I'll see you on the Rift.